Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Jim Perdue, Jr. I'm here on behalf of the Texas Trial Lawyers Association, and we are neutral on the committee substitute to HB 3. We are fortunate to be a stakeholder that has an interest and an opportunity to work with other people, and I think make a commitment to both Chairman Burrows and this committee to work productively and constructively with liability language which serves the interests that were identified by Chairman Raymond, the interests that have been identified by Representative Lucio, the interests that are shared and, quite frankly, voiced, I think, appropriately by the representative for the Small Business Association. There's a construction in this bill that provides for people who are complying with standards to get an elevated standard as far as any question of their liability. That construction in principle is one that reflects, we think, a reflective of decent policy. But here are the facts. There is a nationally published tracker on all litigation that is identified as COVID-related. As of today in Texas, there are 655 total cases that have been identified as COVID-related in the Hunt and Williams tracker. 2 of those deal with an exposure at a business. I'm not familiar with the facts of either one of those cases, but it has been identified in both of those that there's only 2 in the entire state. The question of this, which was raised by Chairman Hunter and also told to this committee by Texas Association of Business, another statement of which I agree. This bill, if it's targeted and temporary, provides an appropriate solution. And we think in a solution that is targeted and temporary for this particular instance in our world that is unprecedented can be an appropriate legislative solution. But at the end, in the devil in the details, and Representative Lucio, this goes to some of the things you've been raising. The language here just says for a person. And as the committee understands, the law recognizes in the law and duties owed to individuals, those duties differ based on what the individual is. So a patient sits in the law differently than an invitee. An invitee looks differently than a licensee. And an employee looks differently than one who is covered by workers' comp and one who is not covered by workers' comp and is a non-subscriber. And those distinctions in the law regarding the duties owed to those individuals are also relevant to the scope of this bill. So we look forward to productively working with Chairman Burrows, every member on this bill, and we thank you for your efforts on it. With that, I'll open up for questions.
All right. Chair recognizes Mr. Hunter.
I'd like you to do the same thing I asked Jim with Texas Association of Business, and that is, and Chairman Burrows will too. My concern is it's not the liability section. I understand that. I just don't want us to use some word that blocks people, businesses, individuals, because I've seen it through a lot of these crises. So would you and TTLA, just like I asked TAB, and Burrows, and I'll be asking all the groups, come up with a definition that's a little bit more specific than disease, just to let everybody know. I pulled up the definition, and it doesn't necessarily mean disease of a personal. It says that they gave me an example. This is for you, Chairman Patty. Disease can be a particular quality, habit, or disposition. Departmental administration has often led to the dread disease of departmentalitis. The last thing we need is to have a word used that doesn't work. And I also don't want to see another pandemic or crisis, and we use a blurb, and then we have this complete reaction by the public on an insurance term, an interpretation term, and the last thing we need are courts reinterpreting this whole law that Chairman Burrows has done. So all my request is not to make fun, but to show how it can be interpreted so broadly that it makes things ineffective. Would you and TTLA come up with your definitions, just like I'm going to ask the other businesses? And I meant to ask NFIB to do the same.
Chairman Hunter, I look forward to the opportunity. I can actually think of language as I'm standing here, so honored to have the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Members, any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here today.
I appreciate it.
You bet.